Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Ticket. And Ruth, thanks so much for joining me here today to talk about our new transformation report. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so wanted to have you on to talk about the 2026 Customer Service Transformation Report, which is live today. And this is a report where we surveyed 2,400 different support professionals from around the globe, and we pulled together their experiences of what they're doing for customer support, their strategy for AI, what's working, what's not, and put that together in this report for everyone to learn from. So excited to have you on to kind of talk through some of the five main key themes from the report, and yeah, just to chat through, our own lived experience of that.
Great. Let's get stuck in.
Cool. So, in case anyone's listening to this and they haven't read the report yet, there's five key points. The first is that AI adoption is the norm. Depth makes the difference. The second is that ROI, return on investment, becomes clear with deeper integration. Third is that the bar has moved from does it work to is this actually good? The fourth is that important support work now extends beyond the inbox. And last but not least, number five, support is creating the blueprint for AI deployment across the business. So get those out front, let them think in. And let's start with point number one, which in my view really is like this top overarching point from the whole report is and this theme that like simply doing AI, saying that like cool, we did AI, check, move on to the next thing. Like that isn't enough. Like you have to commit to going deep with it and commit to that ongoing investment to get to a mature state where it's more than just like AI sprinkles on your support team. So I don't know, like, what do you think about that? Did that stand out to you? And what do you think about this idea that like depth really makes the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it rings true for us on our team, right? We have a whole strategy around starting to tackle the way more complex issues that are still going to humans because we have such a high automation rate on our own side. So I'll explain automation rate a bit. Resolution rate is Finn resolving conversations it's involved in, and involvement is the number of conversations in an intercom context that Finn is trying to resolve, right? When we bring those two together, automation rate is of your total volume coming in as a support team, what is Finn resolving in total there? So we have a super high automation rate, 81%. 81% of everything that comes into us is being resolved by our AI agent Finn. Super cool space for us to be in. But now the really, really hard work is starting to come up, right? So every incremental gain that we're getting through Finn is taking longer than that initial, informational query getting from zero to say maybe like 50% or so. And when I'm chatting with our customers, like a lot of them are speaking about having great resolution rates, but of their overall volume or where else they want to start allowing Finn stretch into, like that's where the rubber's starting to really meet the road there because when you're talking about things like cost reduction or not needing to have linear scaling of support teams to keep up with the number of conversations or cases or tickets or whatever it is that you work with on a service team, or customer growth, you really need to like not just surface level have AI just answering a certain type of query, maybe just like easier FAQs, only this part of the product, you actually really need to start going broader and deeper with it overall to start really seeing the true gains from it.
No, and I feel like what you're talking about resonates with what we heard in the reports. The respondents said only 9% have reached a mature stage, which, what I'm hearing from you is it's really hard to do. It's hard to go into those, it's harder to go into those complex use cases if you haven't made the investment. Versus 45% from the report said that they're still exploring or that they're only live at a limited scale, like you said, maybe only in some channels or only for those informational queries, which it's great to find success there, but you're not going to see the bigger transformation.
Yeah, I mean, they're the stepping stones, right? And you have to get that foundational layer right before you can actually go deeper. But, a couple of years ago when we did this trends report, it looks really different now, right? It's like people were like, I'm thinking about maybe using AI for some FAQs versus now it's like table stakes that you're doing at least that, and now we're really starting to like try and figure out what's next. It's kind of a different phase and a different time in this whole journey that we're on.
lastly, it's like the technology's really changed to go along with it, right? Like, yeah, I think back a few years ago, we were like, oh, it's pulling this Help Center article and like giving the answer. Don't have to send the macro, can avoid a ticket. That's great. Versus today, it's like, oh, it can do these complex systems, these complex procedures. And so let's get it involved in all of that too. Cool. Okay, let's talk about that key theme number 2. ROI becomes clearer with deeper integration. So we heard that the respondents that are at this mature stage of deployment, when we asked them, 87% of that group, they said that they could confirm that return on investment. Again, which makes sense. Like like you said, they've had this fully ingrained in their operation. This kind of mirrors our own support team and like how we've been talking about ROI with our C-suites, with externally with our customers. Like, how has ROI become easier to express, to measure and express now that we're at that mature stage?
Yeah, we've been talking about it in a couple of different ways. So one for us is headcount avoidance. So like not having to do that linear headcount growth that previously in past years pre AI or pre AI for service being so good. Um, you know, my team is getting bigger. So my team is like the AI deployment team. But what we're doing is taking heads from the frontline team and converting them into roles on my team for AI implementation. And often I hear from folks, other customers being like, how did you convince finance to let you have so many people implementing AI when it's meant to, reduce headcount overall? And what I always say is like, I have 5 people fully dedicated to implementing AI, but that's actually saved us having to hire an extra 100 people. So we have about 100 on the frontline team right now. We would have had to double it if we didn't have Finn answering all the questions that it's answering. And because we've been able to move into having it answer more and more of these complex type queries, like that's because of the folks on my team, their full-time job is making that happen. So on one side, it's like the headcount avoidance side of things. Then another piece with it is like keeping people on the support team, keeping excellent people who are excellent agents now transitioning and staying within support, transitioning to roles like AI conversation designer, AI knowledge manager on my team, and keeping them within our organization, keeping great folks within the organization. And the next piece then is the work that the team are actually freed up to do when Finn has such high automation rates. And we're seeing that with our team moving into kind of a more consultative and value add space, where rather than trying to speed through the queue and get through as many conversations as possible, like resolve, answer the question, try and move on to the next thing, Finn is giving them that space and time to start building relationships with customers and have a deeper look at how they're using our product, or using their kind of everything that they're paying for overall. And, I know that you're working closely with the folks who are really trying to prove out that value add and be able to show that the work that we do with customers is actually helping the bottom line and driving ARR overall, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's like I do believe everyone's cared about our support metrics over the years, first response time, CSAT, now we have the CX score. And so it's so compelling to be able to say, oh, our FRT used to be 1 business day, now it's a couple hours, or to be able to say, like here's the CX score across all of our entire caseload, which is almost doubled every single year for the past 2 years. And that's like we get the thumbs up from our CFO, but it's a whole other thing when we can say, oh, and not only is this product troubleshooting a much better experience, but we are also able to do more success style work, consultative work, help drive product usage and adoption. Then like their ears really perk up. And again, that's only happening because of the work of from your team and the work that like AI, Finn and the AI agents are giving us.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how, support as a cost center is such a term that's out there in the world. But now today, like we're actually living this space where we're saving the money and we're actually making the money. We're doing both things now. So we're saving in like not needing to hire all these extra roles because Finn is able to take on so much of that work. And then we're making the money, like literally millions, through the work that we're doing and helping our customers get a better usage out of the product. So it's a whole other world to where we were. Like if you and I have been here a while, right? Like we remember the
Yeah.
dark days previously where it was like burning queues and like not
Yeah.
able to make response time targets, and like we're in this whole other space now. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's such a good example of the ROI. Okay, let's talk about point number 3. The bar has moved from does this work to is it actually good? And really, that phrase, is it actually good, focuses on customer experience. And uh, when across the survey, 58% of the respondents, they had said that improving customer experience and satisfaction is going to be their number one priority for 2026, which is actually like more than double from 2025. And I feel like this kind of connects to this theme that we're talking about, where like before it was just like fighting, fighting, fighting to keep your head above water. But now with this AI agent, it's like, okay, we have the breathing room and we can focus on like, how do we give a better customer experience? As well as like, hey, there's this whole body of work now that happens with an AI agent. What's the customer experience there? Is that also as good as when working with our agents? So, yeah, like I would love to hear from you. Like, why do you think customer experience is now so important, and where do you see this kind of going in 2026?
The word deflection used to be like the buzzword for support teams. You know, it was like deflect as much work as you can. And deflecting doesn't necessarily mean a good customer experience, right? It just means that you made the customer go away, whether they actually got a resolution to their issue or not. And we're in this other space now where like we're talking about resolutions and outcomes for customers using AI. Initially it was all around, you know, like quick answers for FAQs, then they get their answer immediately, brilliant, frees up the time, the team are more efficient. But again, thinking about like how can we continue to use AI to make the experience better not better overall. So not just that it's like fast, but that also it feels like natural. It's not a bot loop of doom. And then it's stretching into doing more types of queries and, you know, more issues, or that it's passing over to humans with all the context gathered up front without having to ask the customer a million back and forth questions. So if you have really great integrations, you don't need to like ask all this stuff. Either they've already told you or you already have this information. Like just in general, it's starting to like hone and tweak and optimize the experience overall and move away from the space where AI is for deflection, and it's actually to improve the customer experience and actually the teammate experience across the board as well, because they're having, you know, they're dealing with more complex queries, which can be tough, but at least they're not answering the same thing day in, day out. And when they do have something passed over to them from AI, they have this really like rich summary of what's happened so far, rich data being served to them around what they need. And again, they don't have to end up in this like multi-day back and forth with customers trying to get the information from them to even start troubleshooting from the beginning. So when I think about, again, like the work that my team is doing and the kind of targets that we're setting, I mentioned that we're at 81% automation rate. And previously we would have been saying that we want to take up that automation rate, you know, 5%, 10% over the course of a few months. Now we're talking about it moving up about 1% per month because of a few reasons. So one is that every 1% when you're at a level like us is harder because you're trying to get AI to tackle well with a good customer experience, more tricky issues, and you need to build all sorts of like APIs, data connectors, there's engineering resources involved, lots more testing and iterating. But also one of the reasons we're not setting the targets to be as, you know, like to move from A to B as quickly is because you could deflect more of these cases, but it doesn't mean, again, that it's a good customer experience. A lot of the work that my team are doing is like, again, honing and optimizing what's already there. So you don't want to set these like wild targets to reach at the cost of customer experience. So we're taking up like a little bit more slowly so that whatever we are implementing AI for is like really top notch, and anything that we have there already, like how can we make it even better for both the customers and the team?
Yeah, and you know, like what I'm hearing from you is this focus on that like ongoing iteration, and it was cool to like launch, yeah, whether it's like the AI agent or some of the AI functionality we had for the team. Like there was that like wow moment at first of like, oh my gosh, like Finn gave this answer and answered their question. Or it's like, cool, we have this automatic generated like full summary for the handover from our specialists to engineers. But that idea of like, is this actually good? Is this a good customer experience? Or is this like a good teammate experience? Like you said, like when you start to kind of unpack that, it's like, well, it's like, it's pretty good, but like, maybe it's a little robust, or like there's some phrasing in here that like we actually don't like. And so that like making it really good doesn't just happen on its own. It is that ongoing iteration that, you know, your team is so focused on. And, you know, that example for the internal note, like I remember Carl shipped the first one and we were like, yeah. And then the team was like, no, man, still, it's like, I need a TLDR. Like, this is too long. I can't read all of this. And we're like, okay, what can we pare back? And like, how can we update the prompt again to make this more effective? And it's like that constant ongoing iteration to make it really impactful for the customer experience at large, I think is, yeah, I'm glad to see that that's such a focus, for us and for support leaders across the industry.
Yeah, totally. And I think about like a lot of the work that my team does, like we're accountable to our automation rates, but a lot of work that they do actually isn't automation rate focused. It isn't actually to resolve the conversation. It's like when Finn can't resolve the conversation, what's that experience like in the handover to humans and beyond? And a lot of work goes into that in terms of like triage, collection, summary notes. And again, like we work really hard to make all that really great for the customer and the team, even if we know it's not going to be a resolution. So I think that's an important note around like, it's not always all about automation rate. It's super important. But when you can't hit that resolution, what next and how does that continue to be great using AI?
Okay, let's talk about point number 4. What we heard from the respondents is that there's so much more happening to helping customers in addition to the work happening in the inbox. And so some stats from the survey was 45% reported that they've now updated teammate job descriptions to include AI-related responsibilities. 40% also said that their human agents are now equally or more focused on training and optimizing their AI systems as well as helping customers. And last stat, 27% reported that the human support agents are primarily only handling these complex edge case and escalations. With again, this big chunk over a quarter are now also doing this consultative and strategic work. So really, this kind of big theme of it's not just product troubleshooting anymore. It is it's that and the AI systems and the strategic work. So yeah, I would love to hear from you. Like, how have you seen this play out? Alongside of all this, we now have, again, these new roles. How do you see this relationship between the new roles and the inbox team kind of all coming together in this new world of support?
Yeah, I mean, it's something you and I are chatting about all the time. We've promoted some folks from the frontline team into roles on my team, like AI conversation designer, AI knowledge manager. But even with my team having a bunch of people full time on this, we still need help from the frontline team in certain areas. So the frontline team still do a lot of QA, like a lot of our QA of both Finn and of other humans as well. The frontline team help on the knowledge side of things. So who better to make sure knowledge is in order in partnership with our strategic knowledge managers than the folks who are actually answering the customers' questions, and they understand how do customers ask these questions, what are they going to understand or what are they going to be confused by. So they have hours and time away from the inbox to help with the content optimization side of things. And in the AI conversation design space, we have folks who are dedicated to doing things like helping test, try to break prompts that we've built, try to break procedures that we built to make sure that we're constantly stress testing anything that we're going to ship out to customers. So yes, we have these new roles on my team, but we also have these added expectations to help my team from the frontline group overall. And then, like you said, they're doing this other value add work around like being more consultative with customers or trying to find ways where they can help customers move forward in their use of the product overall, which is great for the customer because they're getting more value from the product they're paying for. And then it's great for the business because we're getting more money from the customers, right? Or they're not going to churn where they might have before if they didn't see value overall. So it's great to see in this survey now that more and more customer support leaders out there are seeing their teams stretch into these other pieces of work. But I hear your point about like not loving the phrasing about the most valuable work happens outside the inbox. Still, when somebody has a super complex issue or an emotional query, and they need to speak with a human, it is that human moment and that human interaction that can really make the difference, even if it isn't all this other kind of fancy outside the inbox work that's happening, but is just invaluable in terms of the customer relationships that you build. So I understand your point.
Okay, last point. Key point number 5. Support is creating the blueprint for AI deployment across the business. And I love this example because I've been hearing this firsthand from customers myself. Like I was talking to someone recently, and their company had been acquired, and they were like the new CEO. The first person he wanted to talk to was that support leader because he was like, I don't like AI. I'm not bought into it, but I went through like your team's customer journey, and this like their version of Fin they had set up, they were like, is really, really cool. Like, I want to sit down and talk to you about how you've been able to lead this transformation. And again, this isn't just a one-off anecdotes. Like support leaders across the board are, kind of being seen as the department and these experts for being able to kind of lead the charge for AI. I think the stat from the report was it's like 57% of like support leaders are now being asked like, how can they help roll out AI across the rest of the company? And so I think you're a great person to ask about this because I know this has been a big focus for you over, in the new year. Like, what's your experience been with expanding, helping launch AI, not just for customer support or customer service, but for other teams as well?
Yeah, a few months ago at our big customer event, Pioneer, our CEO, Owen, announced that we're moving into this space where Fin is not just a service agent, it's actually a customer agent overall. So the front door to a business where no matter what team or what, job you're trying to get through, that you have this one single agent who's able to help you do all of the things. And we've started to stretch our own Fin into these spaces now. And the super cool thing is that it's my team who are doing this in partnership with other go-to-market teams like sales and success. So one of my AI conversation designers, Fred, shout out to Fred, there's another podcast where we discuss this. He is still reporting to me on our AI support. We're calling it our Center of Excellence for AI deployment now. And he's partnering very closely with folks in the sales organization to use Fin to stretch into the sales use case and do that job. So things like lead qualification, making sure that you're, getting your MQLs across the line, making sure that you're doing things like figuring out new functionality like he did for service before, right? Figuring out new functionality that the sales org need. And then how can we build that into products so that Fin can do the sales job as well as the service job? And it's just really cool to see him as someone who's an expert in AI agent deployment stretch into that space with a different team who have different goals, but the guiding principles are still the same in terms of customer experience. What are you trying to do? What's the problem you're trying to solve? How are you going to report on that? How are you going to make sure that for the customers, it's all about a holistic journey from end to end, no matter what team they're dealing with. And they don't only deal with one team via email and then another team via phone and then another team via chat, and they have to have all these really disjointed experiences. It's about coming in the front door of working with an AI agent, in our case, Fin, and then seamlessly being passed from team to team, no matter what stage of the journey you're on or every time you interact with the company, that it's a very similar AI first, excellent AI first experience. And again, in the background, it's all happening under one customer agent hood. And in our case, it's being implemented by the same team who used to just focus on service, but we did so well in that space and learned so much that now we're taking our learnings and we're the support to other teams that are doing this too.
Yeah, that like battle worn lessons learned and expertise from the last few years, like you said, maybe learning about leads or whatever sales terms is something new, but at the end of the day, that experience for and expertise from your team is so valuable, and it's like just good for the business to get up and going with it. But then more importantly, that unified customer experience is, yeah, definitely where I think all of this is going. So it's a great example for support teams to have, again, continue this theme of having a bigger impact.
Absolutely. Great for careers on the support org as well. The first version of this was support, maybe like frontline folks or previous support managers like myself, moving into these AI focused roles, implementing AI for the service job. And now these same teams starting to be kind of like customer experience more broadly and learning so much more and having influence around the whole business. So like career growth wise and career trajectory, and we're not the only ones doing this. Like you said, there's customers of ours in the same boat. I could never even have dreamed of this a few years ago. And we're in this whole new world now around what your career in customer service can become.
So awesome. Well, Ruth, thanks so much for joining to talk through the reports. For those listening and watching, we'll have the link in the notes. Go check this out. And if you heard something here today and you're like, that sounds really cool. It also sounds really hard. I don't know how to do that. There's lots of links throughout the report, as well as over to our blueprint content that gives this very hands-on best practice practitioner advice to go through step by step to kind of get to this point of maturity, to kind of get to these great outcomes that Ruth and I were talking about here today. So go check it out. We're here to help. And yeah, I'll see you later today at one of our next meetings.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.